All right, so today we're going to be diving into Jack Canfield's The Success Principles.
Okay.
Um, this book it's a classic, it's jam-packed with advice, and I think we really want to make sure that in this deep dive we pull out those nuggets that people can actually use,
Yeah,
not just kind of nod our heads at.
definitely. And I think what's so fascinating about Canfield's approach
Hmm.
is he really emphasizes that personal responsibility piece.
Yeah.
Is that idea that no matter what life throws at you, it's your reaction to it that actually shapes the outcome.
Yeah, it's easy to blame all the external stuff, but he really challenges that victim mentality, right?
Oh, absolutely. And he has so many great stories and examples to illustrate this.
Yeah, like remember that one about the Northridge earthquake?
Oh, yes. That's a
Yeah.
classic. Canfield was living in L.A. at the time, and CNN was interviewing all these people who were stuck in these massive traffic jams because of the freeway damage.
Oh, yeah, total chaos.
Yeah, but what was fascinating is that everyone was in the same mess, same event, but their responses were all over the map.
Right.
Some people were raging, some people were making phone calls, yeah, trying to make the best of it. Some people were even cracking jokes.
Wow. So, like, same event, totally different outcomes based on how they chose to react.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
that's where that E+R formula comes in.
Yeah.
Event plus response equals outcome. He's not saying to ignore the events,
Right.
but become masterful at managing your response. So it's like,
Right.
imagine if you could consistently choose a response that leads to a more positive outcome, no matter what that initial event is.
Okay. That's kind of mind-blowing. It's like we actually have way more control than we think.
Right.
And speaking of control, another principle that really hit me was that don't live someone else's dreams.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I am so guilty of that, trying to please everyone else, and I totally lose sight of what I actually want.
It's so common. And he makes the point that it's not selfish to honor your true self.
Right.
And he actually has this charming little story about a blue notebook. Do you remember that one?
Oh, the Notebook. Yeah, tell me you remember this one too.
Of course, he was at a training and they gave him a perfectly good yellow notebook,
Yeah.
but he really preferred blue. And it made him realize how often he'd squash even those little preferences, just to avoid making waves.
Right.
So he just asked the person next to him if they wanted to trade, and they were happy to.
And the point is she preferred yellow.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
such a small thing. But it highlights that even those tiny preferences matter.
Yeah.
So imagine how many bigger dreams we're putting off because we're afraid of what other people might think.
Oh, totally. And he connects this directly to success, right?
Yeah, he argues that a lot of us are chasing this version of success that's been handed to us, not what truly lights us up.
Right.
So, it's time to ask yourself, what have you been putting off because it doesn't seem reasonable or you're scared of judgment?
Yeah, maybe it's time to dust off those dreams. And this kind of ties into another big one, believe it's possible, which honestly sounds a bit woo-woo at first.
Yeah, I can see that.
But Canfield goes deeper than just positive thinking, right?
Oh, absolutely. He uses that great story of Ruben Gonzalez. Remember this 20-year-old guy who decided to learn luge,
Oh,
a
God.
crazy difficult sport,
Yeah.
and he actually ended up at the Olympics.
Wow.
And it shows that belief isn't magic. It's about seeing a possibility, even if it seems far-fetched, and being willing to put in the work.
Right. It's like the belief creates the container for the hard work to fill.
I love that.
Speaking of hard work, what about that principle, take action and fail forward?
Oh, Canfield's all about action.
Yeah.
He has that great demonstration with the $100 bill.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody gets it until someone actually gets up and takes it.
Right.
Knowledge without action is just potential energy.
Totally. And he reframes failure as failing forward,
Yes.
which is so important for growth. It just reminded me of Rick Little. He got 155 rejections trying to get funding for his project.
Oh, wow.
He could have quit after the first 10, but he kept going, learned from each no, and eventually got the money.
That's persistence.
Yeah. So think about what action you're putting off right now out of fear.
What's the tiniest step you could take today to move forward?
That's a great question.
Canfield would say, just do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotta love that energy.
Yeah.
Speaking of Canfield, has this whole thing about give more than expected,
Okay.
which honestly, at first I was like, isn't that just setting yourself up to be a pushover?
Right. I can see how you'd think that.
But it's not about being a doormat. It's about approaching everything with generosity.
Yeah.
Like, he talks about Mike Kelly, who used to sell sunscreen in Maui.
Yeah.
Wasn't he the guy who'd, climb rocks to get fresh aloe for his customers?
Yes, that's him.
That's commitment.
It's about those little extra touches that show you genuinely care. And he contrasts this with the Ritz-Carlton, known for impeccable service.
Yeah.
Personalized notes for guests remembering their preferences. it makes people feel truly valued.
Yeah, and it's not just about business, right?
Yeah.
Think about your relationships, work, even just interactions with strangers.
Yeah.
Like, what's one small gesture you could do today that would make a big impact?
Okay. Let's talk about money.
Okay.
Canfield calls it developing a positive money consciousness.
Hmm.
And money's loaded with all sorts of baggage, often from childhood.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like he talks about growing up in a family where wealth was viewed with suspicion and how he had to unpack those beliefs to embrace abundance.
Makes sense.
And then he gets practical too.
Mm.
Visualize financial abundance, track your spending, distinguish between assets,
Right.
things that put money in your pocket versus liabilities, things that take it OUT.
Yeah, that's key.
So for you listening, what's one tiny step you could take this week towards better financial habits?
It could be anything, right?
Track your spending, automate some savings, read up on investing, even baby steps count.
Totally agree.
And he wants us to think big, not just earning a living, but building real wealth.
Yeah.
It's about shifting our mindset from scarcity to possibility, and this segues beautifully into find a way to serve. Canfield argues that real success involves making a difference beyond just personal gain, like Mike Milliorn, who invented those little color-coded dots for dating food.
Oh, yeah, brilliant idea.
Right. It started as a simple solution in his own deli, but it ended up solving a huge problem for the entire food service industry.
And you made millions.
There's millions, and A&D made a difference.
Exactly.
And then there's we the people making legal help accessible to everyday
Oh,
folks.
yeah, I love them.
They saw a need, and they filled it.
That's it.
It's about aligning your talents with something meaningful. So what cause speaks to you? How could you use your skills to contribute?
Could be volunteering, mentoring, donating, even just being more mindful of your impact.
Right.
Canfield believes that when we find a way to serve, we not only enrich others' lives, but we find deeper meaning in our own.
I love that.
Me too. And that sense of purpose can be so motivating, especially when you're working towards those big, scary goals. And it can feel kind of overwhelming at times.
Oh, tell me about it when I get overwhelmed. My instinct is to hide under a blanket with a bag of chips.
I hear that. But Canfield says that feeling is often the biggest roadblock to actually taking action.
Yeah, that's true.
So instead of getting paralyzed by the enormity of the goal, he says, break it down into smaller, more manageable steps.
Yeah.
Like climbing a mountain. You don't just stare at the summit the whole time. You focus on the next foothold.
Oh, I love that analogy. And the beauty is you only have to focus on the very next step, not the whole staircase.
Right.
It makes those big dreams feel less daunting, almost like a game.
I like that. And speaking of pushing forward, Canfield also talks about the importance of getting out of our comfort zones.
Oh, yeah, that's one we hear all the time.
Right.
But he breaks down why it's so crucial for growth. And it's not just about being uncomfortable, right?
No, he sees our comfort zone as this kind of self-created prison, built from all our limiting beliefs and fears, and, it might feel safe and familiar in there, but it also keeps us stuck.
Right.
Prevents us from reaching our full potential.
Well, it's like we're trading growth for this false sense of security. I remember that story he tells about buying clothes.
Oh, yeah?
Like he used to have a strict limit on how much he would spend on a shirt, and then his boss took him to this fancy store.
Where the cheapest shirt was triple his budget.
Right.
Can you imagine?
I know he was terrified, but he ended up buying one and loved it.
Yeah, he realized that by stretching his comfort zone, he'd opened himself up to a whole new level of quality and experience.
So for you listening, what arbitrary limits have you set for yourself? What if you challenged those limits and explored what lies beyond your current comfort zone?
That's a good question to ask.
And this leads us to visualize what you want, which is all about tapping into the power of our minds.
Okay.
Now, visualization is more than just daydreaming.
Oh, for sure. It's about actively shaping our reality with our thoughts.
Right. And Canfield believes that our brains don't fully distinguish between actually doing something and vividly imagining it. So by creating these detailed mental pictures of our goals, we're sending powerful signals to our subconscious.
Oh, wow.
To make those goals a reality, it's like we're priming our brains for success.
Yeah, I love that.
And it's fascinating how he talks about the reticular activating system, the RAS, in our brains.
Yeah.
Which acts like a filter determining what we pay attention to.
So when we consistently visualize something, we're telling our RAS to focus on those things in the real world.
Right.
And we start noticing opportunities and connections that were always there but were previously hidden from view.
It's like we're training our brains to spot the path to our goals. So think about a goal you're currently working towards.
Hmm.
Close your eyes and imagine achieving it.
Okay.
Engage all your senses.
Yeah.
What do you see, hear, feel? Canfield believes this practice can accelerate your progress significantly.
And don't forget the emotions.
Oh, yeah.
He emphasizes that emotions are the fuel that powers our visions forward.
Right.
So the more passion, excitement, and belief you can infuse into those visualizations, the more powerful the impact will be.
It's like we're sending out this powerful, energetic signal to the universe. And speaking of powerful energy, Canfield talks about act as if,
Okay.
which takes visualization a step further.
So it's about aligning our actions and behaviors with the reality we want to create.
Exactly.
It's about embodying the qualities and behaviors of the person we want to become even before we fully achieve our goals.
So we're not just visualizing success, we're living it even in small ways. And I remember that story about the party he threw where everyone had to act as if their dreams had already come true.
Oh yeah, that's a fun one.
People dressed up, brought props, and spent the evening celebrating each other's successes.
It's such a powerful way to shift our mindset and start believing in the possibility of our dreams.
Yeah, and Canfield even suggests that this acting as if can attract opportunities and resources.
Interesting.
It's like we're sending out a signal that we're confident, capable, and ready for success, and people are naturally drawn to that kind of energy.
That makes sense.
So what if you started acting as if your dreams were already happening? How would you dress? How would you speak? Who would you surround yourself with?
Those are powerful questions.
Even small changes in your behavior can have a ripple effect on your mindset and your opportunities.
I agree.
And this leads us to a principle that can be a little scary for some people. Ask for what you want.
Oh yeah, asking can be tough.
I know we don't want to seem needy or demanding, but Canfield says it's about overcoming that fear of rejection
Yeah.
and confidently expressing our needs and desires.
He compares it to ordering food in a restaurant if you don't tell the waiter what you want. You can't complain if you get something different.
Right.
He emphasizes being specific about your desired outcome and providing a clear time frame.
It's like giving the universe a clear roadmap to deliver what you want.
I like that.
And he tells this inspiring story of Chad Pregrack, who, as a teenager, was passionate about cleaning up the Mississippi River.
Oh, wow.
And he had no experience or resources, so he just started asking people for help.
What happened?
Even though he didn't even know how to write a proposal at first, his passion and persistence paid off.
That's amazing.
He eventually secured $25,000 from a philanthropist to expand his project.
Wow.
So what are you holding back from asking for? Raise help with a project, even just support from a friend. You never know until you ask.
That's so true.
And even if the answer is no, you've gained valuable experience.
Right. It's all part of the process.
And that brings us to rejection, which is all about resilience.
Okay.
Canfield reminds us that rejection is simply part of the journey, not a reflection of our worth.
It's so easy to take rejection personally.
I know, but he encourages us to develop this next mentality.
Okay.
Just acknowledge it, learn from it, and move on to the next opportunity.
He calls people who try to discourage us dream stealers,
Right.
and he urges us to develop a thick skin.
He shares those incredible stories of persistence, like Colonel Sanders, who got over 300 rejections before finding an investor for his fried chicken recipe.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Or Canfield himself, who got over 130 rejections for the first Chicken Soup for the Soul book.
Really?
Imagine if they had given up talk about a missed opportunity.
It's mind-blowing.
So it reminds us that sometimes success is just on the other side of persistence.
Yeah.
So the next time you face rejection, remember those stories.
You okay?
Reframe it as a redirection, a sign that you're stretching yourself and aiming high if you're not getting rejected.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not taking enough risks.
That's a good point.
And speaking of pushing ourselves, Canfield talks about ask for feedback.
Okay.
It's about actively seeking out information that can help us grow.
He believes feedback, even if it stings a bit, is a gift. It helps us see our blind spots and course correct.
Right. He suggests asking questions like, how am I doing? What can I do better? What feedback do you have for me?
Good ones.
It's about being proactive and receptive, even if the feedback isn't what we want to hear.
And he stresses the importance of listening attentively, taking notes, and thanking the person for their honesty. He even offers a powerful question to ask. How do you see me limiting myself?
Wow, that's a good one.
Right. It invites people to share observations about our blind spots and self-sabotaging behaviors.
And it requires us to be open to hearing things we might not want to admit.
That's true, but it can be so valuable.
Okay, so this ties into commit to constant and never-ending improvement.
Canfield is big on the idea that success is a journey, not a destination.
Right.
It's about always striving to be better, to learn more, to push ourselves beyond our perceived limitations.
He points out that we all have this natural desire to learn and grow, but sometimes we get complacent
Yeah.
or comfortable and we stop pushing ourselves.
He encourages us to adopt a Kaizen mentality.
Kaizen, tell me more about that.
It's a Japanese philosophy of continuous improvement,
Okay.
focused on making small, incremental changes over time.
Imagine the impact those small changes can have when compounded over months, years, even a lifetime.
It's incredible.
It's like those little 1% improvements we hear about. They might seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they create massive results. It reminds me of that story he shares about the baseball player who improved his batting average from .250 to .300.
A seemingly small change,
Right.
but it made him one of the highest paid players in the league.
It's a great example of how those seemingly insignificant improvements can make a world of difference.
So true.
So for you listening, what's one small improvement you could make in your work, your relationships, or your personal life that could have a big impact over time?
Canfield suggests asking yourself, what can I do better? What new skills can I learn? How can I improve my performance? What are my areas for growth?
And don't forget the importance of mentors and coaches
Oh yeah, they can be invaluable.
who can guide and support you along the way. Their insights and experience can be so helpful.
Now, with all this talk about constant improvement, it's easy to get caught up in the doing and forget to prioritize rest and rejuvenation.
So true.
And Canfield addresses this with take time off.
Okay.
It's so easy to fall into that trap of thinking that taking time off is a luxury, but he argues that it's essential for our well-being.
When we're constantly on, we're not only depleting our energy reserves,
Right.
but also missing out on opportunities for reflection and creative inspiration.
He suggests scheduling regular breaks, vacations, even just pockets of downtime throughout the day to disconnect, recharge, and return to our work with renewed energy and focus.
I love how he talks about Vinod Khosla, the founding CEO of Sun Microsystems,
Oh, yeah.
who actually tracks how many times he makes it home for dinner with his family.
It's a powerful reminder that even highly successful people prioritize time with loved ones and recognize the importance of work-life balance.
It's about creating a life that feels sustainable, not just striving for success at the expense of our health and well-being. And speaking of sustainability, Canfield's principle, be willing to pay the price, acknowledges that success rarely comes easy.
He's not talking about suffering for the sake of suffering,
Right.
but recognizing that anything worthwhile requires effort, dedication, and a willingness to overcome challenges.
So he encourages us to identify the price we're willing to pay to achieve our goals and commit to paying that price even when it gets tough. And he shares stories of people who paid a steep price for their success, like Ruben Gonzalez, the Olympic luger we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Years of grueling training injuries and setbacks. It's inspiring to see that level of dedication.
For sure.
He also tells a story about Stephen J. Cannell, the TV producer and screenwriter,
Oh, yeah, I know him.
who used to hire young people right out of film school to work in the mailroom of his company.
Really?
And he noticed that many of them complained about the low wages and long hours, failing to see the bigger picture.
It's easy to get caught up in the immediate discomfort without recognizing the long-term benefits.
And Cannell believed that their willingness to pay the price early on to embrace the learning experience would ultimately determine their future success.
That's a good point.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest rewards come from embracing the challenges and pushing through the discomfort. So what are you willing to do to achieve your goals?
What sacrifices are you willing to make? What challenges are you willing to face?
Having that clarity about the commitment required can be incredibly motivating. And speaking of motivation, Canfield is all about action with his principle, take action.
He believes that knowledge without action is useless.
It's about moving beyond planning and strategizing and actually taking steps toward our goals, even if those steps are small. Remember his demonstration with the $100 bill.
Nobody gets it until someone actually gets up and takes it.
Right.
It's such a simple but brilliant illustration.
We can't just wish for things to happen. We have to make them happen.
Exactly.
He shares a story about Mike Kelly, that sunscreen salesman who went above and beyond for his customers.
Oh, yeah.
And when he wanted to secure a contract with a big hotel chain, he didn't wait for them to come to him.
What did he do?
He hopped on a plane and showed up at their office unannounced.
Talk about bold action.
I know, right? His boldness and initiative paid off.
Did he get the contract?
He secured the contract proving that sometimes taking a leap of faith and putting yourself out there can yield incredible results.
I love that story.
It's about trusting your gut, taking that chance, and being willing to step outside of your comfort zone. And Canfield also emphasizes persistence in our actions.
Okay.
He tells the story of John Assaraf, who, when he needed to expand his office space, simply called a locksmith and got access to the adjacent space.
He just did it.
He figured the worst they could do was charge him rent. That whatever it takes mentality is so inspiring.
That's amazing.
It's about finding creative solutions, being resourceful, and not letting obstacles stand in your way.
Yeah.
Canfield encourages us to adopt a similar mindset, to think outside the box, and to take bold action. But amidst all this action, he also reminds us of the importance of strategic inaction with his principle, do nothing.
Do nothing.
It might seem counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but he acknowledges that there are times when the most productive thing we can do is actually step back and allow space for clarity and inspiration to emerge.
That's interesting. In our always-on, constantly connected world, it can feel almost radical to simply do nothing.
It's true, but Canfield argues that it's essential for tapping into our inner wisdom. He encourages us to schedule regular periods of do-nothing time.
Like what?
A few minutes each day for meditation or quiet reflection, or longer blocks of time for retreats, vacations, or simply unstructured time to let our minds wander.
I could use some of that.
It reminds me of that story he shares about attending a silent meditation retreat.
Oh, yeah.
He found it incredibly challenging at first, but ultimately transformative.
What happened?
It was during those periods of quiet contemplation that he had some of his most profound insights and creative breakthroughs.
So it's about creating space for stillness to allow our minds to settle and to tap into that inner wisdom.
Exactly. So think about how you can incorporate some do-nothing time into your life.
Could be anything, right?
Spending time in nature, listening to calming music, or simply sitting quietly and observing your breath. The key is to create space for stillness, to allow your mind to settle and to tap into your inner wisdom.
And once you've tapped into that inner wisdom, you might find that you need to delegate some tasks to others,
Okay.
which is exactly what Canfield recommends with his principle, delegate to others.
It's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking we have to do everything ourselves.
Oh, I know.
But Canfield argues that delegating is not only about getting things off our plate,
Right.
but also about empowering others and creating a more effective team.
He suggests asking ourselves, what tasks do I dread? What tasks am I not particularly good at? What tasks could someone else do more efficiently or effectively?
It's about recognizing our limitations and leveraging the strengths of others.
Yeah, and he emphasizes the importance of clear communication, setting expectations, and offering support and feedback.
He uses the analogy of hiring a gardener. He doesn't micromanage every detail.
Right.
He simply communicates the desired outcome, a beautiful and well-maintained garden.
So what tasks can you delegate in your life? Think about those things that drain your energy or that you're not particularly skilled at.
By delegating those tasks, you can free up your time and energy to focus on your strengths and highest priorities.
Absolutely. And that leads us perfectly into determine your key result areas.
Okay.
Canfield encourages us to identify the activities that have the biggest impact on our success and prioritize those areas.
He calls these our key result areas, or KRAs.
Right.
So it's about recognizing that not all tasks are created equal.
Some tasks move the needle more than others.
Exactly. He suggests asking ourselves, what are the 20% of activities that produce 80% of my results? What are the essential tasks that, if done well, will make the biggest difference in my work?
It's about getting clear on what truly matters and focusing our energy on those high-impact activities.
He tells a story about a real estate agent who was trying to do everything himself.
Oh, wow.
Showing properties, making cold calls, handling paperwork, even cleaning his office.
He was exhausted and not see the results he wanted.
Right. He realized that he was wasting precious time and energy on tasks that weren't his strengths.
So what did he do?
By delegating those tasks and focusing on his KRAs, building relationships with clients, and closing deals,
Okay.
he saw a dramatic increase in his productivity and income.
That makes sense.
It's a powerful example of how prioritizing our efforts can lead to a significant increase in results.
So what are your KRAs? What activities have the biggest impact on your success once you've identified them? You can start creating a plan for maximizing your effectiveness in those areas. And speaking of maximizing effectiveness, Canfield also talks about the importance of simplifying our lives with Declutter Your Life.
Oh yeah, I need to work on this one.
He believes that clutter, both physical and mental, can drain our energy, distract us from our goals, and create a sense of chaos and overwhelm.
It's about creating space both physically and mentally for the things that truly matter.
Yeah, he suggests starting with our physical spaces, our homes, offices, and even our cars.
Go through our belongings and ask ourselves, do I need this? Do I use this? Does this bring me joy?
If the answer is no, let it go, donate it, sell it, or simply throw it away.
And he also encourages us to declutter our schedules and commitments.
Look at your calendar and ask yourself, are these commitments aligned with my values and goals? Are they truly necessary? Do they bring me joy?
If not, politely decline or reschedule.
It's about being intentional with our time and energy, saying yes to the things that matter and no to the things that don't.
And don't forget about mental clutter.
That's right. It's about setting boundaries with technology, limiting exposure to negative news and social media, and engaging in activities that bring us peace and joy.
It's about creating space for stillness, for reflection, for those moments of clarity that can be so elusive in our busy lives. And once you've created that space, you can start filling it with positive and supportive relationships.
Which is what Canfield recommends with surround yourself with successful people.
He believes that the people we spend time with have a profound impact on our mindset, beliefs, and success.
It's about being intentional about who we allow into our inner circle.
Right, surrounding ourselves with people who lift us up and inspire us to be our best selves.
He calls these people radiators because they radiate warmth, energy, and encouragement.
They're the people who believe in us, support our dreams, and challenge us to grow.
And he contrasts them with drains.
Oh, yeah.
Those people who drain us of our energy and enthusiasm.
They're the ones who are negative, critical, or discouraging.
Right. He suggests limiting our exposure to drains, setting boundaries, and prioritizing time with radiators.
And he acknowledges that it's not always easy to distance ourselves from drains, especially if they're family members or close friends.
But it's about recognizing the impact those relationships have on us and making conscious choices about who we allow to influence our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
He tells a story about a businessman who realized he was spending too much time with people who were constantly complaining and gossiping.
What happened?
He consciously sought out more positive and supportive relationships, and the shift in his mindset and outlook was dramatic.
That's amazing. It's a powerful reminder that we have the power to choose our influences.
Yeah.
And that leads us to acknowledge your positive past.
Okay.
It's so easy to focus on our mistakes and shortcomings.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But Canfield encourages us to shift our focus to the positive, to celebrate our wins big and small.
He suggests keeping a success journal where we record those wins.
Yeah.
And taking time each day to review them and savor those feelings of accomplishment.
He also encourages us to share our successes with others, to celebrate our wins with friends and family, and to allow ourselves to receive praise and acknowledgement.
It's about recognizing our worth, appreciating how far we've come, and acknowledging our strengths and accomplishments.
He tells a story about a woman who struggled with low self-esteem.
Okay.
She had a habit of focusing on her mistakes and minimizing her accomplishments.
What did she do?
She started keeping a success journal and sharing her successes with her husband each day.
And what happened?
That simple shift in focus led to a gradual but significant increase in her self-esteem. She began to see herself as capable and successful, and her confidence grew.
It's a beautiful reminder that we have the power to shape our self-perception. And this naturally leads us to the question,
Right.
what is success anyway?
That's the big question.
And Canfield dedicates a whole chapter to this question.
Really?
And he encourages us to define success on our own terms.
It's so easy to get caught up in those societal definitions of success.
Right, which often focus on external markers like wealth status and achievement.
Canfield argues that true success is more holistic and personal.
Yeah, it's about living a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling.
He suggests asking ourselves, what does success mean to me? What are my values and priorities? What kind of life do I want to create?
And he offers a framework for defining success that encompasses 4 key areas:
Okay, what are they?
achievement, significance, happiness, and legacy.
I like that.
So achievement refers to our accomplishments, our goals, the things we set out to achieve in the world.
Makes sense.
Significance is about the impact we have on others, the difference we make, the legacy we leave behind.
Happiness refers to our overall sense of well-being, our joy, our contentment, our fulfillment.
And legacy is about the lasting impact we have on the world, the
Yep.
values we pass on, the contributions we make that will outlive us.
It's about creating a life that feels balanced, meaningful, and aligned with our deepest values.
He tells a story about a man who was wildly successful in business,
Okay.
but he felt deeply unfulfilled.
Oh, wow.
He was living someone else's definition of success and had neglected the areas of significance, happiness, and legacy.
What did he do?
He shifted his focus to incorporate those areas into his life and began volunteering his time, mentoring young entrepreneurs, and spending more time with his family.
What result?
A profound sense of purpose and fulfillment, he was finally living a life of true success.
Love that.
One that felt authentic and aligned with his values. It's a powerful reminder that we have the power to define success on our own terms.
Yeah.
And that brings us to take 100% responsibility for your life. It's about moving beyond blaming others, making excuses, and feeling like victims of circumstance.
It's about recognizing that we have the power to choose our thoughts, beliefs, actions, and responses, even in the face of challenging circumstances.
He acknowledges that there are events and circumstances in life that are beyond our control.
Right.
But we always have a choice in how we respond to those events and circumstances.
He tells a story about two people stuck in a traffic jam caused by an earthquake. One person was furious, while the other was surprisingly calm.
Same event, different responses, different outcomes.
Exactly. It highlights the power of choice in shaping our experience, even in difficult situations.
He suggests asking ourselves, what am I choosing to believe? What am I choosing to focus on? What actions am I choosing to take? How am I contributing to the outcomes I'm experiencing?
It's about taking ownership of our lives and recognizing that we have more power than we often realize.
And that empowerment can be incredibly liberating, especially when it comes to pursuing our dreams. And that's where Live Your Dreams comes in. He encourages us to identify our passions, our aspirations, the things that make our hearts sing. What are those things for you?
That's a great question.
He suggests asking ourselves, what are my dreams? What do I really want to do with my life? If I had no limitations, what would I be doing?
It's about tapping into that deep inner yearning.
Right. That sense of purpose that's unique to each of us.
And he acknowledges that sometimes our dreams might seem scary, unrealistic, or even impossible.
But he encourages us to embrace those dreams, to believe in their possibility, and to take steps towards making them a reality.
He tells a story about a woman who always dreamed of writing a novel, but had put her dream aside to focus on her career and family.
Okay.
She eventually realized she wasn't living in alignment with her true desires.
So what did she do?
And made a commitment to her writing, even if it meant making sacrifices.
Did she end up writing the novel?
She started waking up an hour earlier each day to write, joined a writing group for support and accountability, and eventually completed and published her novel.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's a beautiful example of what's possible when we prioritize our dreams and take consistent action.
So what dream have you been putting off? What's one small step you can take today to move closer to making that dream a reality?
And that leads us to experience your fear and take action anyway.
Canfield acknowledges that fear is a natural human emotion.
It often arises when we're stepping outside our comfort zones and pursuing our dreams.
Right. But he encourages us not to let fear paralyze us or prevent us from living the lives we want.
He suggests that we acknowledge our fears.
Yeah.
Identify the specific thoughts and beliefs that are creating those fears.
Yeah.
And then challenge those thoughts and beliefs.
He encourages us to ask ourselves, what's the worst that could happen? What's the likelihood of that happening? What can I do to minimize the risk? What are the potential benefits of taking action despite my fear?
It's about shifting our perspective from fear to possibility.
And he emphasizes the importance of taking small steps. We don't have to conquer our fears all at once. Start with small, incremental actions that gradually build our confidence and expand our comfort zones.
He shares a story about a woman who was terrified of flying, but desperately wanted to visit her grandchildren who lived across the country.
Oh, wow.
Her fear was holding her back, but she started taking small steps.
Okay, like what?
Watching videos about flying, talking to people who love to fly, and practicing relaxation techniques.
So she was able to overcome her fear.
She gradually worked up the courage to take a short flight, then a longer flight, and eventually she was able to fly across the country to visit her grandchildren.
That's incredible.
It's an inspiring example of how we can overcome even our deepest fears by taking small, consistent action.
So what fear is holding you back? What small step can you take today to face that fear and move closer to your goals? And once you face that fear, remember to be mindful of your words and speak in a way that creates positive outcomes. That's what Speak with Impeccability is all about.
He emphasizes the power of our words, believing that our words create our reality both for ourselves and for others.
He encourages us to be mindful of the words we use,
Yeah.
to choose words that are positive, uplifting, and empowering.
He suggests asking ourselves, are my words aligned with my values and goals? Are they kind, compassionate, and truthful? Are they creating the outcomes I want?
It's about being intentional with our language and recognizing that our words have a profound impact on our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
As well as the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors of others.
Right. He also encourages us to be mindful of our nonverbal communication,
Yeah.
our tone of voice, body language, and facial expressions.
He points out that our nonverbal communication can often speak louder than our words.
It's about ensuring that our words and actions are congruent,
Right?
that we're communicating authentically and with integrity.
He shares a story about a businessman who had a habit of speaking negatively about his competitors.
Okay.
And he realized that his words were creating a negative energy that was affecting his own business.
What did he do?
He made a conscious decision to speak only positive and supportive words about his competitors. And he was amazed at the positive shift he experienced in his own business.
It's a powerful reminder that our words have a ripple effect. When we speak positively, we create a positive ripple that extends outward.
Impacting not only ourselves, but also those around us.
So what if you made a conscious effort to speak with impeccability, to choose your words carefully, and to align your nonverbal communication with your intentions? Imagine the positive impact you could create in your own life and the lives of others.
It's a beautiful challenge, and it leads us to transcend your limiting beliefs.
Okay.
Canfield argues that we all have those internal stories,
Right.
those beliefs about ourselves and the world that can prevent us from reaching our full potential.
It's those voices in our heads that say things like, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, or I'll never be able to afford that,
Those beliefs often operate below our conscious awareness.
shaping our perceptions and influencing our choices.
Right. Canfield provides a really helpful four-step process for identifying and transforming those limiting beliefs.
Okay, so first we have to become aware of the belief. What's that story you keep telling yourself?
Once we've identified the belief, we need to get clear on how that belief is limiting us.
Is it preventing us from taking risks, pursuing opportunities, or expressing ourselves fully?
Then we define how we want to be, act, or feel.
What's the opposite of that limiting belief? What would it look like to embody confidence, abundance, or self-worth?
And finally, we create a turnaround statement, a new empowering belief that we can repeat to ourselves to reprogram our thinking.
And Canfield emphasizes the importance of repetition.
Just like we create those limiting beliefs through repeated negative self-talk.
We can dismantle them by consciously replacing them with positive affirmations. It's about creating new neural pathways, new habits of thought that support our growth and success.
Like retraining our brains for success.
And speaking of training, Canfield suggests that we develop 4 new success habits every year.
He believes that our habits are the foundation of our lives.
They determine our actions, our outcomes, and ultimately our destiny.
He encourages us to be intentional about the habits we cultivate, recognizing that even small changes in our daily routines can have a significant impact over time.
He suggests focusing on 4 key areas: business, finances, health, and relationships.
So for you listening, what's one new habit you could develop in each of those areas that would move you closer to your goals?
Maybe it's starting each day with a gratitude practice, setting aside a specific time each week for financial planning, incorporating a new form of exercise into your routine, or making a conscious effort to connect with loved ones more often.
The possibilities are endless, and Canfield also provides some helpful tips for developing new habits.
Oh, like what?
Like starting small, focusing on one habit at a time, being consistent, and finding an accountability partner.
It's about setting ourselves up for success by creating a supportive environment and enlisting the help of others.
Right, and speaking of support, let's talk about clean up your incompletes.
Oh, this is a big one for me. I tend to accumulate unfinished tasks like nobody's business.
Well, Canfield argues that those unfinished tasks, unresolved issues, and lingering commitments can drain our energy and distract us from our priorities.
Right.
He calls these incompletes and encourages us to create a system for tackling them efficiently and effectively.
So it's about creating a sense of order and clarity in our lives, freeing up mental and emotional space to focus on the things that truly matter.
Exactly. He suggests making a list of all our incompletes, prioritizing them based on importance and urgency, and then scheduling time to tackle them one by one.
And he provides helpful tips too, right?
Oh yeah, like breaking down those tasks into smaller chunks, setting deadlines, and finding ways to make them more enjoyable. He even suggests a completion weekend, where we dedicate a whole weekend to tackling as many incompletes as possible.
Now, that might not sound like the most exciting way to spend a weekend,
True.
But imagine the sense of relief and accomplishment you'd feel after clearing that backlog.
Right. It's like hitting the reset button on your life and creating a fresh start. And speaking of fresh starts, Canfield's principle, forgive everyone, is all about releasing those negative emotions that can weigh us down and prevent us from moving forward.
It's so easy to hold on to anger, resentment, and grudges.
It is. But Canfield argues that forgiveness is ultimately an act of self-love.
He emphasizes that forgiveness doesn't mean condoning the other person's actions or forgetting what happened.
It's about releasing the negative emotions that we're holding on to so that we can move forward with our lives.
It's about choosing peace over resentment, freedom over bondage.
Exactly, and he suggests writing a total truth letter to the person we need to forgive, expressing all our feelings, even the angry and hurtful ones.
We don't have to send the letter, though, right?
No, not at all. The act of writing it can be incredibly cathartic.
It's a way to process our emotions, release the negativity, and create space for healing. And speaking of healing, face what isn't working encourages us to be honest with ourselves, to acknowledge areas where we're struggling, and to face our challenges head-on rather than avoiding them.
It can be tough to admit when things aren't working, especially if we've put a lot of time and energy into something.
Yeah, it's easier to just pretend everything's fine.
But Canfield argues that facing the truth, even if it's uncomfortable, is the first step towards creating positive change.
He encourages us to ask ourselves, what's not working in my life? What am I avoiding? What am I pretending not to see?
It's about shining a light on those areas where we might be stuck and being willing to see things as they truly are.
And sometimes it helps to get an outside perspective too, right?
Oh, absolutely. He suggests seeking feedback from trusted friends, family members, or mentors who can offer insights and guidance.
Like he tells a story about a business owner who was in denial about his failing business.
Yeah.
He was making excuses and blaming external factors instead of taking responsibility for the situation.
What happened?
It wasn't until he finally faced the truth, acknowledged his mistakes, and sought help that he was able to turn things around.
Sometimes we need that external nudge to help us see what we might be blind to.
Canfield encourages us to be willing to face the truth even when it's uncomfortable. It's about acknowledging our mistakes, learning from them, and taking action to make things better. And that leads us to embrace change, which is all about seeing change as an opportunity for growth.
Change is inevitable, right? It's a constant in life. But Canfield encourages us to shift our mindset from viewing change as a threat to seeing it as an opportunity.
Okay, I like that.
He suggests asking ourselves, what's the potential upside of this change? What new opportunities might it bring? How can I use this change to grow and learn?
It's about reframing our perspective and focusing on the positive potential that change can bring.
Exactly, like he shares a story about a man who was laid off from his job.
Oh, no.
He was initially devastated, but he eventually saw the layoff as a chance to pursue his dream career.
So what did he do?
He went back to school, got a degree in a field he was passionate about, and landed a job that was more fulfilling and rewarding than his previous one.
Wow, so what might have seemed like a setback turned into a springboard for something even better.
Exactly. It's amazing how our perspective can shape our reality.
It reminds us that we always have a choice in how we respond to change, and sometimes that response can lead to unexpected and positive outcomes.
And to navigate those changes effectively, we need to cultivate a positive mindset. And that's where transform your inner critic into an inner coach comes in.
Okay, I think we all have that inner critic, that voice in our heads that can be negative, judgmental, and self-sabotaging.
It can be hard to silence that voice. But Canfield offers some practical strategies for turning it into an ally.
Like what?
He encourages us to become aware of our inner critic, to identify those patterns of negative self-talk, and to challenge those thoughts and beliefs.
So ask yourself, is this thought helpful? Is it true? Is it kind? Would I say this to a friend?
And if the answer is no, reframe the thought in a more positive and supportive way. It's about being kind and compassionate towards ourselves, just as we would be towards a friend.
He also encourages us to develop an inner coach, that voice in our heads that's positive, encouraging, and supportive.
What would your inner coach say to you in this situation?
It's a powerful practice to consciously cultivate that inner voice of support and encouragement.
He shares a story about a woman who had a habit of criticizing herself after presentations.
Oh, I hate that feeling.
She realized her inner critic was holding her back from performing at her best.
So what does she do?
She started to consciously reframe her thoughts, focusing on the positive aspects of her presentations and acknowledging her strengths. She also started visualizing herself, giving a successful presentation, feeling confident and poised.
And it worked.
The result was a dramatic improvement in her performance. She felt more confident, more relaxed, and more engaging.
It's a beautiful reminder that we have the power to change our inner dialogue and create a more supportive and empowering internal environment. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Jack Canfield's The Success Principles. It's been quite a journey exploring these principles, and I feel like I've learned so much. What about you?
Absolutely. It's amazing how these principles, while seemingly simple, can have such a profound impact on our lives. It's not about mastering every single principle overnight,
Right.
but about choosing those that resonate with us
Mhm.
and experimenting with them in our own lives.
And Canfield provides a wealth of stories, exercises, and practical strategies to help us implement these principles and create lasting positive change. And I love how he emphasizes that success is a journey, not a destination.
It's about continuous growth, learning, and evolution.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, think about what stood out to you most, what resonated, what inspired you, and most importantly, what one action are you inspired to take?
But remember, you have the power to create the life you want. Start by believing it's possible, taking 100% responsibility for your outcomes, and then take that first step, even if it's a small one. As Canfield often says, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
And here's one final thought to ponder. Canfield talks about how the steps often appear after you start moving toward your vision. So what's stopping you from taking that first step? What dream are you ready to bring to life?
The world is waiting to see what you create. Go make it happen.
Onwards and upwards.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep reaching for your highest potential.